going there to see my mama. I'm going there no more to roam. Oh yes, I'm just going over Jordan. I'm just going over home. I'm just I'm going over home.
Hello, my name is Father Timothy Tighe, and this is our 126th segment of our journey of faith in the light of the cross, in which we complete the Joseph story. Now we go to our screen for our theme, and we see God redeemed the selling of Joseph by blessing Israel with Pharaoh's inheritance. Yet Joseph was comfortable enslaving Egyptian farmers to build up Pharaoh's inheritance. How does Joseph prepare us for Jesus? For Moses, Jesus, and John begin in the wilderness. We go on to our next screen, and we always locate ourselves in Acts 7 as Stephen is preaching to the Greek-speaking Jews. Joseph invited his father Jacob and all his kin of 75 souls to come down to Egypt. Jacob went down to Egypt, where he and our fathers died. Their bodies were taken to Shechem and placed in the tomb that Abraham had bought for silver, and sometimes Jacob had bought it, from the sons of Hamor in Shechem. Stephen emphasized burial in Shechem because that's in Samaria, and Philip is going to evangelize Samaria in chapter 8. We go on to our next screen. Joseph, alternating terror and generosity for 18 months, finally revealed himself and said it was God's will that he was sold to Egypt in order to feed and save Israel's family. Now, in the light of the cross, God permitted it because he can draw good out of evil, the word redeem, as Jesus redeemed the cross into a blessing. Finally, Joseph sends his brothers back to bring their father Jacob after tormenting him and his family for about 18 months. We go to our next screen. We're in Genesis 45:25. The brothers returned and they said to Jacob, "Joseph is alive and he rules Egypt." Stunned, Jacob said, "I must see him before I die." Then Jacob goes and he's offered sacrifice to God. God said to him, "I will go with you to Egypt, for the God of Israel is not restricted to any place, including the land of Israel." Joseph met his father in Goshen, embracing him and weeping on his shoulder. Israel said to Joseph, "I can now die, having seen that you are still alive." We go to our next screen. We're in chapter 46. Joseph then said to his brothers, "When Pharaoh asks you, 'What is your occupation?' you must say, 'We are shepherds as our fathers.' He will allow you to settle in Goshen, for all shepherds are abhorrent to Egyptians." Shepherds develop immunity to the diseases in the sheep, but they pass them on to other people if they associate with them. So people stayed away from shepherds, and Joseph wants his people segregated. 47:3, Pharaoh asked the brothers, "What is your occupation?" They said, "We are shepherds. Please let us settle in Goshen." Pharaoh said, "They may settle in Goshen." God bless them over there. Joseph turns being excluded, because they're shepherds, into a blessing. We go on to our next screen. We're in 47:8. Pharaoh then asked Jacob, "How many years have you?" He was being very polite. Jacob replied, "I have lived as a wayfarer for 130 years. My years were hard, but not compared to the years my fathers lived as wayfarers." And then Jacob withdrew, and now you know why we keep emphasizing that beautiful hymn, "The Wayfaring Stranger."
No dark clouds will head around me. I know my way is rough and steep. Your beauteous fields lie just before me.
We go on to our next screen. Joseph's land policy. Now we look on the other side how Joseph treats the Egyptians. Joseph collected food payments from all of them, and he put them in Pharaoh's palace. So Pharaoh collects all the money. After Egyptian money was gone, Joseph collected all the livestock, so he gets the money and the livestock. A year later, the people came saying, "Take us in our land and make us slaves of Pharaoh." So Joseph collected all the land. Was he hated? We wonder. All farmers were reduced to slavery. The correct word is serfdom. In Goshen, Israel acquired property. They were fertile and increased greatly. So Joseph's family is doing wonderful. They're blessed and they're not in slavery. And the Egyptian slaves are saying, "What is this?" Were they hated? We go on to our next screen. Genesis 48:1, Joseph took his sons to visit Jacob. This is important. He said, "Ephraim and Manasseh shall be mine," Jacob says. "Your heritage will be recorded in their names." There's no Joseph tribe. There are two tribes of Joseph, Ephraim and Manasseh. Joseph put Ephraim on his left and Manasseh on his right. Manasseh is the oldest one. But Israel crossed his right hand into Ephraim. Joseph tried to change the hands, but Jacob said, "The younger shall surpass the older one," as Jacob himself surpassed his brother Esau, and Ephraim did become the leader of the northern kingdom. We go on to our next screen. Joseph shared Pharaoh's inheritance with his own family, but reduced Egypt's farmers to slavery. What a contradiction. The firstborn's domesticated world is very ordered, so Joseph is the firstborn, foreshadowing the order of the Mosaic law. So there's no law of Moses for 400 more years. Domesticated world looks down, even sneers at undomesticated as wild, unsafe, and inferior, and Joseph seemed to symbolize this. Thus farmers were better off as slaves under his control, as he has a legal domesticated world which is superior. Joseph buried Jacob in Shechem in Samaria. This is for later, chapter 8. All of us are wayfaring strangers till home with God. We go to our next screen and we read, Joseph was comfortable with women and eunuchs, but wary of their deceptive ways in order to achieve status and wealth. Joseph knew that his own grandmother had deceived her husband Isaac, his grandfather, and Esau, his uncle. And he also knew that his own mother Rachel had used him as a firstborn performer to tyrannize Leah and his half-brothers. Because Joseph centralized Pharaoh's rule, a new dynasty easily enslaved the Hebrews. So you centralize it, a new Pharaoh comes in, you are now the slaves. Jesus never managed a household and avoided domesticated world of Sepphoris and Tiberius. He began his public life in the wilderness, as did Moses and John the Baptist. We go to our next screen. Paul said, "We are no longer under the pedagogue. We are free to live as heirs of Abraham." Instead of building up the inheritance, Jesus gave his inheritance away, serving the sick and the afflicted. Jesus flourished in an undomesticated, unordered world of riverbanks and lake shores, pouring out his life-giving love to the many, made to feel like wayfaring strangers. They'd find their home in the eternal Jerusalem. And we go to our final screen and we read, God redeemed the selling of Joseph by blessing Israel with Pharaoh's inheritance. Yet Joseph was comfortable enslaving the farmers to build up Pharaoh's inheritance. How does Joseph prepare us for Jesus? Moses, Jesus, and John begin in the wilderness. Thank you so much for joining us. I want to thank Jason Brown and Martha Velez for all the help they give me in order to produce these segments. Thank you for joining us. I hope you continue to join with us as we continue our journey of faith in the light of the cross.